What's going on YouTube? CloverBells here, back with another Series 12 team building video, and we're taking a revisit and a relook at the Solgaleo Kyogre archetype. And again, this is my favorite duo, and we've used it previously, like towards the beginning of the format, and then we never touched it again. So I really like these two and just how they function together and how you played them. Just because it just best suits my kind of playstyle. So let me revisit the first version that we did way back then, and it's still used even today. And then this time we're gonna do a little bit of a different build. But Solgaleo Kyogre was on that team. Then we had Entei, right? And the whole reason with Entei is you can't fake it out, and then you have Bulldoze to activate the weakness policy on the Solgaleo, which again we will have on here as well. But this is again just back with the first team. So then from here you had something like Grimmsnarl just to make the team extra bulky, you know, screen support, and then Rillaboom, which is also good even now, right? Because you know, because you have a Kyogre, Gastrodon is something that you have to consider, and you need an answer for it. You know, Entei can't really do much to it, neither can Grimm. Solgaleo can in a way overpower it, but again it just takes you know, that super effective ground move for it, and if Gastrodon maxes, then you're in trouble. So you do need some grass coverage for the Kyogre, and the Rillaboom was best. And then we had the Tornadus, right? And the Tornadus was just another way to give speed control, and another way to proc the policy because you had Brutal Swing on the Tornadus, right? So this was like what I called the Clover 6. Go figure, right? So you had a couple of modes here. You had Tone Ogre mode, right? You can go for Tailwind, Water Spout plays, and then when the Ogre, you know, could potentially like switch out and stuff, or you know, if it did go out, then you could just bring in Solgaleo, click the Brutal Swing button, and then Dynamax this, and this thing just goes ham. You had like Entei, Grimmsnarl, you know, set up screens, make Entei really bulky, you know, and then you know just bring in Solgaleo, and then just you know proc the policy behind screens and stuff like that. And then Rillaboom never really came unless there was like a Gastrodon, and then even then, like it hardly did it. So that was the original version back in February. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a relook at this and build the team a little differently, right? Because that version was like more of a hyper offensive team. We're going to take the reverse approach this time. We're going to look at a slower, bulkier version of that team, and we're going to go like a Trick Room route. So first we'll go with Solgaleo Kyogre, right? And again, the reason why these two are really good together is, you know, Solgaleo doesn't really like fire types, so stuff like, you know, Charizard or even Incineroar to a degree, not the best. You are a steel type, and Kyogre can just pretty much alleviate that kind of weakness, you know, by bringing out the rain. Really good against, you know, Groudon stuff, because, you know, Solgaleo doesn't really like Groudon very well either. Same with Landorus, and Kyogre can give you something against that, right? And then on the flip side, Kyogre again doesn't really appreciate, you know, the grass things like Venusaur or Rillaboom. So you can always pivot that into Solgaleo, and then Solgaleo can pretty much just handle those relatively fine. And, you know, again, Kyogre doesn't really have to max, right? And it's really Solgaleo that's maxing and giving Kyogre those Steel Spike boosts and those max Quake boosts to make it just extra bulky and extra thick. And then you just sit behind those stat buffs, and then you just click Water Spout, Origin Pulse plays, and then until the game is over, right? So that was like the combination with these two, and they've done relatively okay up until this point in the meta, right? You know, they haven't actually won that big tour yet, but they've had some, you know, some top cut placements, and I think it's just only a matter of time, you know, before it can win the big one, right? I wouldn't even be surprised if it won Worlds, okay? But anyway, so how are we going to build the rest of the team? So I think Incineroar is a must here, just because now we do need Intimidate and Fake Out support. You know, the Calyrex teams, the Lunala teams, you know, they just, and even like Yveltal to a degree, right? They just give Solgaleo and Kyogre just a little bit of trouble. So, you know, having a dark type against those things, you know, the ghost type coverage is good. So Incineroar really helps a lot here. And then, you know, we do want to play this relatively slower, right? So what if we go just like the Porygon-2, right? So, you know, more coverage, more support for the Lunala, Calyrex stuff, right? And then what you can do with the Porygon is, again, of course, set up Trick Room, you know, even turn 1 Instant P2, you know, Parting Shot, Trick Room, then bring in Solgaleo, And then what you can do with the Porygon is similar to how you played with the Calyrex Ice Rider. You can just foul play your own Solgaleo, proc the policy that way, and then, you know, keep clicking max Quake and max Steel Spikes, make the Porygon-2 pretty much unkillable, especially with the Eviolite boost, you know, and then P2 can just win the end game, you know, and just stall, right, when it's all said and done. So I think this 4 is the core in terms of how we want to play this team, right? So this is my approach this time around with this archetype, right? So then from here, I think you do want like a strong flying electric type, right? Because Airstream is still important, and just being able to, you know, put pressure with, you know, super effective Airstream and lightning moves is really, really good. So I chose Zapdos. Now, instead of Zapdos, what you can also do is like Thundurus here. And the Thundurus, the benefit here is, one, you're faster than Zapdos, right? Which means you're faster than stuff like Charizard too. So, and then with the Life Orb, then, you know, you just do like even more damage, right? With your Airstream and Lightning plays, then you can make Solgaleo and Kyogre faster with those Airstream boosts, to the point where they can be the fastest things in the meta, right? And then Thundurus also discourages things like Landorus and even Incineroar. You know, Solgaleo doesn't really like any of those two. So the fact that we can have Thundurus on the team is also really, really nice. But that will be an alternate version of the team that I'll show you. I'm going to do 2 versions. But we are going to go with Zapdos first. Zapdos is just really good. Resists Zacian very, very well. It's pretty bulky. It does great damage, you know, into the sun stuff. You know, Venusaur doesn't want to take that Airstream. Charizard doesn't want to take that Max Lightning. And then Groudon and Zacian, they don't want to take a Heat Wave or a Fire type attack in the sun themselves, right? So Zapdos is really good there. And then for the mirror, same idea. You know, you have an electric move against the Kyogre. But Thundurus is also pretty good in that role, and maybe does the job even just a little bit better, just because, you know, Kyogre's physical defense is not as good as its special defense, right? So even though it'll be taking good damage against Zapdos, it'll be taking even more damage against Thundurus, right? So that's why Thundurus may be the better option in this slot as opposed to the Zapdos. But, you know, if you consider stuff like Instant Zapdos leads, you know, that we've done that before on the channel, very, very good. You know, you can always parting shot into any of these two, and then Zapdos can just make them fast with like Airstream stuff. So it's really, really nice. Then here, so I'm thinking of like Gastrodon situations, right? Where, you know, the Gastrodon wants to come in and then ruin Kyogre's life and put pressure on Incineroar as well as Solgaleo, right? Because of the ground move stuff. So I'm thinking Amoonguss here can be an answer or a way to deal with that, especially with like some kind of grass coverage, or just like redirect the Gastrodon stuff even. Because like Gastrodon, you know, they just click yawn until the end of time, right? So I think just having redirection with like Trick Room stuff is pretty good. And this is how I kind of want to play this team, right? Just have that Intimidate support with Fake Out pressure, and then Speed Control with the Trick Room stuff. And then get these two behemoths in position where they can just dominate the game, and, you know, sweep the opponent from there, right? So this is this initial version of this team. I'll show you one more version with Thundurus and Grimmsnarl, but we'll talk about that in a second. But let's just go ahead and reveal these GIFs. So we have the Solgaleo and Kyogre. We'll reveal the Amoonguss, the Incineroar, the P2, and the Zapdos. So now what we're going to do is we'll try and build the team based on Eevee's items and movesets. All right, so let's take a look at the Sun Kitty first. So we are going to go Sun Steel Strike. You know, of course, that's your stab move, and then Earthquake. Again, this is where Max Steel Spike and Max Quake comes into play. And then the whole goal behind these two moves is not only to boost yourself, but boost the Kyogre, P2, and maybe even the Amoonguss to a degree, where they're both like, all three of these things are like not killable, or they're going to be having a hard time, and then they can just outbulk the opponent. And then from here, I think we also want Trick Room here. Now, in the previous version, like last time in February, we ran Wild Charge, the tech, just to snipe Kyogres. But then if we have Zapdos or Thundurus on this team, then we don't really need Wild Charge anymore, right? So we can go something like Rock Slide, which is a very good move. You know, great against stuff like Zard, you know, Incineroar, you know, any kind of flying type that doesn't really want to take a rock type move. But I'm going to go Trick Room out here, just because I think it can surprise the opponent, and they don't really expect it. they see the P2 as the Trick Room setter, but you know, late game Trick Room Solgaleo, especially in the best of 3, can really surprise the opponent, right? And then of course Protect, just so that we can bait potential max moves into activating our policy and while not taking too much damage, right? And also stalling out, you know, potential Tailwind turns. So that's our Solgaleo, and then now we'll look at the Kyogre. So the Kyogre, because the thing is, here's how I want to play Kyogre this time around. You know, if you remember our Dialga Kyogre team, that was a Calm Mind Kyogre team, right? Just because we had Grimmsnarl on the team, we set up screens, or Dialga can set up, you know, the max Quake and the max Steel Spike boost, make Kyogre relatively bulky, and then we just click Calm Mind, and then, you know, we just eventually outbulk the opponent and do even more damage as if Kyogre did not have the Calm Mind boost, right? And I think I want to do that this time around as well with Solgaleo though. So Calm Mind, Protect, and then from here we do want Origin Pulse. We'll be taking quite a bit of damage, so we don't really need Water Spout. And then, you know, stuff like for Gastrodon, I think Ice Beam is important, just so that we don't get completely wall binded. Yes, I understand Thunder is a really good move and has good synergy, especially with Zapdos. When Zapdos clicks, you know, Max Lightning, you set the terrain. Kyogre can do more damage with Thunder on the field, but I'm just thinking about, you know, like, I want to click something against Gastrodon. And this is also pretty good into Landers if we ever have to click it, right? And then we always get the potential freeze hacks, right? Which is always nice. So then Leftovers Kyogre is the play, right? We alternate our Calm Minds and Protects, and we get residual recovery over time. So I think this is the way we want to do Kyogre and Solgaleo this time. P2, Foul Play and Eerie Impulse. Of course, our supporting set, then Recover and Trick Room. You know, relatively standard Porygon set. Nothing to really be said there. Same thing with the Incineroar. Now, we are going to go with Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Parting Shot, right, and Throat Chop, right? So, you know, the Dark move, of course, for those annoying, you know, beast ghost types running around in the meta, we do need that into play. Now, here with the Incineroar, so like if you click, you know, Trick Room, then, you know, opposing Amoonguss and maybe even Venusaur, you know, outside of Trick Room can be a problem, especially with like Sleep Powder stuff. Yes, we have a Zapdos, but sometimes it's just not enough, right? So I'm thinking on this type of build, maybe even the Goggles could be a thing. And then it also stops, you know, residual weather damage. And then also with the Incineroar Safety Goggles, you can bypass the Amoonguss redirection and maybe even just hit that Lunala, you know, past the redirection and, you know, get rid of its Shadow Shield for that, you know, sake of argument. So I think Goggles Incineroar is okay. Now, if you are still on the Shuka Berry bandwagon, if you're worried about Groudon, by all means stay with the Shuka Berry. It's totally fine. I think it's still maybe even the best item, but I do like Safety Goggles on this kind of team. But again, it's all personal preference. Zapdos, man, I mean, I do understand the supporting set, you know, Goggles Zapdos, modest builds, a little bit slower, but man, I just like Life Orb Zapdos, man. It just does so much damage. It's so cool. And, you know, this is supposed to be the Thunderous slot in the second version of this team. More or less the same idea. I just want damage, you know, big hitting max Airstream with like Hurricane stuff. Of course, we still want Thunderbolt, staying consistent damage as opposed to Thunder. And then here's the Heat Wave play, and then Protect. Now, again, actually, no, not Heat Wave. Let's go Weather Ball. Yeah, I think this is the better one. I remember we used this like in the beginning in our own Zacian Kyogre team. Zapdos Weather Ball, because now Zapdos Weather Ball is good into both weathers, right? If there's sun out, it becomes Max Flare. If there's rain out, it becomes you know, Max Geyser. So this way, we're not only limited to really capitalizing against sun teams with Heat Wave, right? You know, because if the rain is out from Kyogre, then Heat Wave is not really doing that much. But if we can turn this into Max Geyser, you know, certain situations where like this can actually be a little bit better, and you can even KO Incineroars with this, right? So I do like Weather Ball here in this slot for Zapdos. Now, Amoonguss, Focus Sash is the name of the game. All right, we need to be able to take that one hit, so this way, you know, either Porygon or Solgaleo can set up that Trick Room. And here's how we're gonna play this. Look, watch this. Rage Powder, Spore, Protect, of course. Now, in this third slot, you know, you would think, okay, we need a grass move, right? We need something like Seed Bomb, or, you know, what is it, Giga Drain, or Energy Ball, in this slot, you know, just for like Gastrodon stuff. But you know what I was thinking? You know, I still think I do want to like rely on overpowering the Gastrodon a little bit, and just redirecting the Yawn stuff is okay. I think if it's like Kyogre versus Gastrodon, you know, we have the power of Calm Mind. We can just alternate Calm Minds and Protects, and then, you know, we can beat it in the end game with like Ice Beam, right? So here's what I'm thinking. What if we did like Amoonguss Solgaleo leads, and then just being able to proc Policy with our own Foul Play, just like P2. And then now you have Solgaleo in Trick Room and Amoonguss in Trick Room. You spore one slot, and then Solgaleo puts pressure on the other slot. I think it's a pretty funny combo when you can self-proc the Policy with your Amoonguss Foul Play. I think it's good. Really, it's also good against like, you know, Shadow stuff, or even the Ice Rider, because like really you're bringing the Amoonguss, you know, in those Ice Rider games, you know, just because you have the slower thing. And then being able to Foul Play a Calyrex Ice Rider in Trick Room where you have the advantage, you know, is actually really, really nice. So I think this is the way I want to play this type of team. Now, I know we don't have the grass coverage for, again, the Gastrodon, but that's okay. We don't need it on necessarily, right? We'll just play a little bit better. Now, in the second version, when we include Thundurus, there will be a Rillaboom in the Amoonguss slot. So if you're more interested in that one, you can skip to the timestamp and take a look at our second version of this team. But this is the one that I want to go with, right? So I think we've got all the items here. So good. Now let's just go ahead and do the EVs. All right. So for Solgaleo here, of course, we're going to be going Adamant, right? We don't need to go Jolly if we're going to be, you know, primarily in the Trick Room game. So honestly, what you can do is just put enough speed like this, or even just go one above it, just so that you can outspeed Thundurus after an Airstream. I think that's fine. And now, again, all you need is 120, but, you know, we want to outspeed those speed creepers outside of Trick Room, so I think 121 is the name of the game for Solgaleo. And then from here, you know, you do want the bump in the attack nature. You know, we are Adamant, so let's take a look at the first EV bump here. Let's see where it is, and here it is right here. You see how you went from 174 to 176? This is what we call the EV bump. And again, if you don't know what EV bumps are, yeah, check out our video on the channel where we explain what EV bumps are, because if you're trying to play competitive Pokemon, you gotta know what they are. But again, essentially what it is, to make a long story short, there's 3 points in the attack nature for Solgaleo where the stat actually goes up by 2 points instead of 1, and it's every 80 EVs where it happens, right? So because this is the first interval, right, with 20 investment, the next one, 20 plus 80 is 100, where the stat over here would go up by 2 points. So let's take a look at that. And you see how it goes up by 1, and then finally by 2, right? So you see how you went from 185 to 187, right? Here's the second bump, but we're gonna go one more bump here. Let's go to 180, right? 196 to 198. So this is what we want from our Solgaleo, and then we just want a bunch of HP, you know, be super bulky, just to, you know, be the big tiger tank, cat tank that we want it to be. 239 investment is all we need. This is great against, you know, stuff like the Wildfire Vine Lash chip, just to optimize it a little bit better. And then all you really need is 1 point in defense, and then the rest can just go in special defense. The special defense here, along with this HP, is good for the Calyrex Shadow Rider stuff, especially if they're not Life Orb. So we generally enjoy this leftover special defense boost. Now, again, if you don't want all this attack, if you think 100 is good enough for you, you know, you can dump all this into defense if you want, or you can dump a little bit more in special defense where you can live a Life Orb Astro Barrage, and then put leftovers in defense here. But again, that's completely up to you. I enjoy a little bit more damage out of my Solgaleo, so I went to 180, right? So now Kyogre. So we just want to be a slow, bulky, and a relatively still hard-hitting ogre. So we're still going to be modest, but all we really need is this much speed. 112, right? Because the 112, you will underspeed most Groudons in Trick Room, and not only that, you know, even without Trick Room, you will underspeed them anyway, and then you will change weather, assuming you both send out your Groudon and Kyogre out in the field in the same time, right? Because always the slower weather overtakes the previous weather. So I generally like 112, and then what's good about 112 is after a +1 Airstream, right? 112 times 1.5, you outspeed base 100s. you go to 168, which will outspeed stuff like Charizard, Zapdos, Entei, Regigigas, you know, if you want to throw in some lesser common stuff. But yeah, they'll outspeed them. And then, you know, after a second Airstream, 112 becomes 224, and that outspeeds the Shadow Rider, right? So I always like to say, you know, 112 is one of those magic VGC numbers. Okay, so from here, now we just want to, again, hit that bump here with the Calm Mind stuff. Now, you can leave it here at 76. See how you already have 198 special attack stats, because Kyogre is a monster, right? But if you want, you can go a little bit more into the next one, and I specifically want to go to 210 because with the Calm Mind boost, I do want an even number. I don't want an odd number because then I get a decimal after the 1.5 boost, and then it just rounds down, right? We don't want it to round down. We want it to be a nice whole number. Same thing with the special defense here. We just want a point here, but again, this is an odd number. We want to optimize the Calm Mind as well as the max Quake boost, so we'll add one more point and then just make it at 12. And then from here, my HP, I just want 192. This is going to optimize our leftovers recovery because every turn we get 1/16 of our max HP per turn. So this is like the Rillaboom rule, you know, where you get the grassy terrain recovery. So if you do the math here on your calculator, again, I already memorized this, but you know, this is just to show your viewer. 192 divided by 16, that is 12. So you're getting 12 HP recovery per turn with the leftovers. And if you undercut it like this, it's like 11.9375, something like that. So you're only getting 11 recovery per turn. Why would you do that? Just go to the threshold, and now you get 12 HP recovery per turn, right? Now, if you go one more, like something like this, you know, 194, now it's 12.1 something, which still rounds down to 12, so it doesn't really matter. I rather invest more in my physical bulk and you know, just counter out the damage that way. And that's exactly what we do. And I'm fortunate enough that this is also an even number, which will help me with the Steel Spike boost optimization, right? So there's our bulky Ogre spread. And again, you know, because you have Incineroar on the team, you know, Rillaboom, Grassy Glides, you know, they're going to have a harder time to knock out this Kyogre, especially if they don't have Miracle Seed. If those Rillabooms are Assault Vests, you are living Grassy Glide range, right? And then you can potentially KO them back depending on how many Calm Mind boosts you've had. Rillaboom is not that bulky. I think even one would be enough depending on their spread. All right, Porygon. So P2 here. Again, Calm Nature is really, really nice just to be able to survive, you know, Kyogre Water Spouts a little bit better. Let me just find out where it is. Okay, here we go. So we can go something like this. Where is the bump? Right here. You see how you went from 141 to 143. But again, because we have the Eviolite and where our special defense is multiplied by 1.5, this is again a decimal, which will round down. So we don't want that. So we want that even number in the special defense. So now we get a 144, which is exactly what we want. And then from here, we just want like a bulky P2, you know, 191, you know, just to optimize the hail chip damage. But again, if you want to optimize recovery a little bit better with your recover move, you can go to 192, totally fine. But I like 191 here because now I have 140 points left. So I can just do something like this and just leave it like that because now I have even numbers in my bulk. But what I can also do is something like this. No, actually, I will leave it like this. I think this is totally fine. And then from here, do I have Trace? I do have Trace, right? Yeah, okay, good. So Incineroar. So Incineroar here, again, careful nature is all we need. And I want to run a faster Incineroar. And now let me explain why. And let me first go to my speed tier. Let's go 95 Incin. So the idea with 95 Incin, right, is you want to 99% of the time have a faster Incineroar, to me, in Trick Room that is not a Calyrex Ice Rider team, mainly because for three reasons. One, you have a faster Fake Out, so this way you can ensure that your Porygon or Solgaleo gets up that Trick Room, because if their Incineroar is faster than you, then their Fake Out goes first and then you can't get your Trick Room up, right? So that's one reason. Second reason is once you get your Parting Shot going, you know, then your Throat Chop outside of Trick Room, first of all, will go first. So if you have a faster Throat Chop, they can't go for their Parting Shot. You stop them from pivoting. And then in Trick Room, your parting shot goes last, right? Because if they have the quote-unquote slower, aka faster Incineroar, they'll be bringing something in first, and then whatever they bring in, then your parting shot goes up, right? And then, you know, you stat reduce them, right? And it's all because of your speed tier. So that's 3 reasons why you run a faster Incineroar. I say it every time we run a Trick Room with Incineroar on it. So we're just going to go with the first bump here, 76, just in the Careful Nature stat, and then just enough defense where, you know, we can at least do a little bit better with the Zacian fighting move after Intimidate. So I think this is just a relatively standard Incineroar spread for Trick Room, I would say. All right. Zapdos here, we just want to, again, be max speed. Timid is always the play. You know, this way we don't lose speed ties. And then just a little bit of Life Orb optimization, 28 HP. You know, because again, if you remember what Life Orb does, 1/10 of your HP is lost with every attack. So if you break the threshold like this, now you're taking 17 damage per turn. Why would you do that? Just go to 169, and now 16.9 per turn doesn't make sense. It rounds down to 16, which is what we want. So we gained essentially a tiny bit more bulk, 4 more HP, but we're also adding 1 point in the defenses here. So this way, just a tiny bit of bulk would help in the long run. And then we just dump the rest in special attack. That's our standard Zapdos spread here. And then finally, the Amoonguss, we're going to keep using the same Amoonguss that we've been using since February. All right, and again, the whole idea is to have 0 speed. So this way you are the fastest thing in Trick Room. 236 HP investment, you know, which gets your HP stat to 219, which optimizes regenerator recovery, because 1/3 of your HP every time you pivot to recover. You don't want to get a decimal in terms of recovery value, because then it just rounds down. But if you have 219, it's a flat whole number, which means a good number for recovery. Then we hit the bump in the defense nature with 156. This is the second bump. You see how you went from 119 to 121? This is what we mean by that second EV bump. And the rest just gets dumped into special defense, right? And I always choose Relax because, you know, I want to take those Zacian hits better, those Landers, Airstreams a little bit better, the Incineroar Flare Blitz a little bit better, especially in the rain. I think it helps a lot. So, yeah, so here it is. This is our original, our initial Kyogre, Solgaleo, Calm Mind Kyogre, I should say, squad. So again, if you look at the team as a whole, you know, you can see a lot of combinations here. You could do Incin P2, Parting Shot, and Trick Room turn 1. Bring in either Solgaleo for a Foul Play Weakness Policy proc, Dynamax this, and Smash. Or you could bring in Kyogre, change the weather against Groudon, and then just go for the Origin Pulse stuff. And then, you know, things just die, right? You can even do like Amoonguss Solgaleo, you know, redirect, set up Trick Room, or even like Amoonguss P2 for that reason, set up Trick Room. And then Foul Play yourself, you know, for the weakness policy activation, and then just Dynamax it, and then just go Smash, right? Instant Zapdos, another one you could do. You know, just pivot either one of these behemoths, you know, to get an Airstream boost with Zapdos, or you could just straight up lead Zapdos Kyogre or Zapdos Solgaleo, make them fast, and then eventually over time they can just do some big damage in the end game, right? So a lot of different combinations. It all depends on the matchup, but this is the idea with Calm Mind Ogre with Solgaleo. Again, you want to get those boosts onto Kyogre so it just becomes super bulky in the end game, and then Kyogre and P2 can, you know, force those end game scenarios because of their bulk, right? Now, you almost want to put Grimmsnarl on this, right? And there is a way to do it, of course. You know, I think Grimmsnarl definitely belongs on Solgaleo and Kyogre. So we'll show a second variation where we actually have that, and instead of the Zapdos, we will put the Thundurus slot. So let's take a look at that. All right, so now let's take a look at a second variant here. So let's remove the Zapdos and we'll add the Thundurus here. So again, the Thundurus just gives you a physical electric flying option with the Life Orb. Again, you're faster than Zapdos, which means you're faster than Charizard. So that's always a plus. And then you can deal more damage against opposing Kyogres and even the Assault Vest Yveltals that can give Solgaleo and Kyogre a little bit of trouble. So Wild Charge and Fly is good. And now from here, you have the option to click Brick Break, which can break the opponent's screens, or you can just go with something like Foul Play here. And then what's cool about Foul Play is, again, with also with the Amoonguss, But there won't be Amoonguss on this team anymore with Thunderous version. But with Foul Play, again, really good against other weakness policy stuff that wants to get it activated. But also, you can go for max Darkness plays and then just make Kyogre hit like a truck with the Origin Pulses and Ice Beams, right? So that's the benefit there. And then Protect, of course, in the final slot. Now, instead of the Amoonguss, what we're going to also try is the Rillaboom, just to put on an actual grass type on the team that can, you know, also give us Fake Out if we need to. But again, Grassy Glide and Fake Out are the two moves that you want here. Now, here you have two options. Either you go Miracle Seed Rillaboom, you know, for extra oomph, as I like to say, you know, a little bit more damage with your grass type moves, or you can go with the AV Rillaboom, and then just be able to take, you know, a couple more special attacks like the Calyrex Shadow Rider, Astral Barrage. You can take a Kyogre Ice Beam a little bit better, and then, you know, just being able to live certain special moves is always a plus, right? And then I think High Horsepower would be a play here. You know, this way you have something to click against Incineroar and Zacian, you know, assuming you have to play against those two. And then finally here, now this one's up for grabs, right? How do you want to do this? Like, you don't need knockoff necessarily because you already have like a Thunderous here and an Incineroar. I think something like U-turn is pretty good, just to be able to pivot out of things. And then, you know, this is good against Indeedee, you know, because Indeedee's annoying. So I think U-turn is actually really, really nice. Now, I do want my G-Max here with the Rillaboom. I should have clicked it originally. But anyway, so we got Thunderous, we got Rillaboom. You know, Porygon can stay. I mean, it's okay. I think you also almost want Grimmsnarl on this, just to be able to add screens here, you know, behind the Ogre, and for the Solgaleo. So I think we will put Grimmsnarl here just to show you a different variant of the team. So here's Grimmsnarl. I actually, now that I think this is the same 6 from Malaysia that got top 4. I think it is, right? So and it makes sense, right? You know, the Thunderous and the Zapdos slot, the Rillaboom and the Amoonguss slot. You know, you're just more aggressive physically, right? And that's kind of how you have to want to play this version. You know, you're playing it more aggressive, right? Whereas our version, we're a little bit more defensive, trying to set things up first and then smash. So it all really depends on your play style. If you want to play more aggressive, you play it like this. If you want to play a little bit more defensive and a little bit more slower, then you use this version, right? But anyway, so here we go. Light Clay on the Grim, because, you know, you are going to be going, you know, Light Screen and Reflect, of course. Now the other thing that can also give Ogre some problems, and maybe even Solgaleo, is Bulkier, right? So, you know, having Fairy coverage I think is good. Originally when we had the P2, we could always just, you know, click Eerie Impulse, and then Zapdos does decent into it. But without the P2, now we need something else here. So I still think Spirit Break is good. All right, now on this one, I think you either want to try something like Sucker Punch, you know, just to activate the policy on your Solgaleo, or you go something like Taunt. But I think Sucker is pretty good here. Now, if you have Taunt, then you stop Trick Room, right? Which is really, really nice. But the thing is, like, you can just stall it out with like Light Screens and Reflects, right? I'd rather have those up than, you know, not have a way to activate Policy on Solgaleo. Because now what you could do is lead Solgaleo and Grimmsnarl, or even Instant and Grimmsnarl, pivot out, you know, set up a screen first, then get the Solgaleo in, and then, you know, then click something like Sucker Punch, right? So Thunderous and Grimmsnarl is also a pretty good lead, right? Because, you know, a Prankster Mon with a Defiant Mon, you know, a lot of things can happen here. But making the Thunderous bulky is really, really good. And then, you know, I still think you want Taunt on this though, right? Because, like, is Palkia, I mean, I'm also thinking about Yveltal, but, like, you have Thunderous for Yveltal, right? So you're not really worried so much there. Is Palkia that big of a deal? I mean, we can always endgame it with Calm Mind Ogre, right? Which is always a thing. And then we do have Rillaboom, right? Alright, you know what? You know what? Yeah. Okay. We'll do it. We'll take a page out of Malaysia's book and we'll go Sucker Punch and Taunt. Because, like, Trick Room is still kind of, like, tough, right? Even, like, Tailwind stuff. So I think this is the way. Okay, so careful. That's how we want to play this one. Again, we just want that first bump here. I think just this much, right? Again, this is the same Grimmsnarl spread that we've been using since the beginning of the format. What this does is with Reflect and then Incineroar Intimidating coming in, you live the Adamant Zacian Behemoth Blade. And if you live that, you know, then you get another turn to click another screen, right? And then you're set up for the rest of the game because they KO your Grimmsnarl, then you can bring in Ogre or Solgaleo behind both screens, and then you're just kind of chilling, right? So definitely would like that. We just have to do the EVs here. So Thundurus is relatively easy. Just go Jolly here. And same idea as Zapdos, you know, you just want Life Orb optimization and just a tiny bit of bulk in the defenses, and then the rest just gets dumped into the attacking stat. Now, Rillaboom, I think we have a few options here for Rillaboom. Mainly, I just want to hit a couple of benchmarks and bumps, but of course we are going to be adamant. I think 192 HP is what I always like to do on Rillaboom, just because of the grassy terrain recovery, and then 196 for our attack investment. And then from here, you know, I do like adding 52 defense just to be able to take that Zacian Behemoth Blade and be able to live it. I think that's always a nice little bonus if I can live that. And then, you know, how much speed do I want on my Rillaboom? Like, I do want to... Do I really need that much speed? I think just having this much bulk is okay, right? You know, just 124, and then, you know, just like a slow Rillaboom just to like overtake terrain stuff from like Indeedee, or you could even run like no speed, but I don't think you need to do it like that. I think this is okay in terms of what we want out of our Rillaboom. Okay, because we're clicking Grassy Glide anyway. I was just gonna say, like, what if I went out speed Groudon and hit it with a, you know, a Wood Hammer, but I don't have Wood Hammer, so I just have Grassy Glide. I think this is okay. All right, so a slow Rillaboom is what we're gonna be doing. And yeah, so like this is a second version of this team. So let's just go ahead and pull that up here. So I do like Thundurus here with Grimmsnarl, and then Grimmsnarl just adds bulk for the entire team, right? If you look at this team, you know, you got your Fire, Water, Grass core, and they're all like relatively bulky, right? Especially behind like Grimmsnarl screens, and then these two, Solgaleo and Kyogre, can just come in the back, right? This one, you want to like try and set your team up, you know, by setting up Trick Room first. So position-wise, you know, instant P2, instant Solgaleo, or even like P2 Solgaleo, protect turn 1, then click Trick Room. You know, just, you know, get in position and then deal the damage. Whereas this one, you just hide behind your screens or click Airstream, make yourself fast, and then you're okay. Oh, actually, now that, wait, hold on. Now that we have no Trick Room here, I think we want to make the Ogre a little bit faster. I caught myself here. How do we want to do this? I think do we want to go a little bit weaker? I think we can go a little bit weaker. Do we? Because like I'm thinking something like this where we want. No, I think I think I'm gonna do it like this. Let's yeah, something like this, right? I want to outspeed. Yeah, this is perfect, right? Because then we don't speed tie Solgaleo. Yeah, something like this. So let's make that pace one more time. Okay, so the reason I was doing that is I want to outspeed an opposing Thundurus after a +1 Airstream, right? So I gave up a little bit of my bulk, but it doesn't matter, right? Because I have Grimmsnarl screens to compensate. So I'm perfectly fine there. I didn't want to give up damage there because I think having the second bump there on Kyogre with the damage is important. So I am hiding behind the screen, so I can give up a little bit more defensive bulk, add a little bit more into speed, and now I still don't speed time my Solgaleo, which is great. Solgaleo is still faster, so we can always give up the boost into Kyogre, and then again, both of these after an Airstream boost outspeed an opposing Thundurus, which I think is very important. All right, so yeah, those are the two versions. We're just gonna use this one in a couple of test battles, and then we'll get you guys out of here. So let's take a look. Okay, so this is a Kyurem-White dual weather team. That's kind of interesting. I think it works with Groudon. I don't think it works like this with Torkoal and Kyogre. I don't know why we would want dual weather with Kyurem-White. But anyway, so Solgaleo looks really good here, right? Just because there's a Whimsicott which just dies to a steel move. Torkoal dies to Quake, and then Kyurem-White just dies to, you know, another steel move. So you know, it looks really good here. And then, you know, end game situations with Ogre can just clean things up, right? So I feel relatively fine just going with my Incineroar and the P2 to set up that kind of combination. And he goes Whimsicott Ogre. So again, we should be able to live everything here. And I know Incineroar goes down, but that's okay. What we can do is just click Fake Out here on the Whimsicott so we don't get taunted. And then even if he protects, same thing. I just click Trick Room and then we're kind of fine. He can click the Water Spout play. That's fine. Then I just get the free switch into Solgaleo. Then I can proc Policy with Foul Play to myself and then just smash from here, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. So, oops. There's the Helping Hand play, which is really good play on him. So he wants to kill the P2. If you were going to do this, I would have just maxed the Ogre here. But he lets me get Trick Room up, and now I can get Solgaleo. So that would have been a good play, right? If he maxed the Ogre, right? But of course, the Whimsicott used the Helping Hand. So, I have no way of knowing if he had Helping Hand or not. I would just have to assume next time, maybe he does have it. So, with Fake Out did not help me at all there. Now what does help me is this position. So here's the Foul Play, and again, there's the Policy proc, and Ogre can't really do anything, and it actually just dies to Max Quake, right? So there's that. Whimsicott just goes for Energy Ball. Again, doesn't do a whole lot into P2. Torkoal comes in, but what we can do is bring in our Kyogre, and then he's going for the Eruption play, Helping Hand, which is kind of funny. But again, that does nothing against everything that we have here. And you see how Solgaleo is just dominating this game. And now all he has left is the Kyurem-White. So obviously he's just going to max this. But Kyogre is just doing relatively fine here. Here's another Origin Pulse. And now we just finished the game with Steel Spike, and Kyurem-White just can't take that either. And that's pretty much all she wrote here. We left the Whimsicott alone. It wasn't really doing any type of offense. We just had too much pressure on it because we were able to get Trick Room up and then set up our Solgaleo. So that's how you play the team. Let's look at one more. Okay, so this is another good one. So this is Rinya's son, right? So of course there's a Gastrodon. You would imagine he would bring it against a Kyogre. But I do like Zapdos in these situations. But I also like Solgaleo as well. Now I understand there's a Groudon and a Charizard, but the advantage this time is you have a Kyogre, and that the Kyogre can really do a lot against the Zard and the Groudon. So I'm not going to be afraid to bring the Solgaleo because it looks good against a lot of what he has, especially the Zacian and the Grimmsnarl. I just have to position my Ogre alongside it so that way, he has to think twice. But I do see the Grimmsnarl. He probably may lead with that, which is why I'm going to lead with Solgaleo and Incineroar just to be able to remove it. So here it is. And again, I don't want to deal with this Prankster shenanigans, so I'm not going to max here. And he does switch out. He doesn't want to get faked out, and he sees the Incineroar won't intimidate him at all. So I just removed the Grimmsnarl right off the bat. No screens for him. And I know he has Groudon and Zacian in, and now his Zacian is not intimidated anymore. But that doesn't matter, right? Because now we can just go into Zapdos, protect Solgaleo, and if the Groudon wants to click his P-Blades, it's not going to do anything. Yeah, you see that? And now, I don't know why he clicked Play Rough into the Steel type, but that's okay. So now Zapdos, now what we have to do is just get Solgaleo faster than the Zacian. Groudon can't do that for him. Now all we have to do is just chip the Groudon to the point where, Kyogre in the back can finish off the Assault Vest, Groudon. So we went with the Airstream Earthquake play. He goes for Rockfall, but again, Groudon without any type of damaging move is just not doing a whole lot. There's the Gastrodon, and he switched out Zacian there. So now everything just dies to Earthquake here. So not sure why he switched the Zacian like that. That was his only win con against the Gastrodon, but because we got rid of it that way, Solgaleo can just win in the end game now, and that's all she wrote, right? He has to forfeit. So we had Kyogre in the back. We had everything in the back, actually. So, again, you see the combinations here, right? Zapdos next to Solgaleo, just being able to put a lot of pressure with the Life Orb, and then making Solgaleo fast where you can just spam Earthquake next to it, and, have teams ignore the Solgaleo because they don't want to proc your policy. They want to focus the Zapdos, but by then it's just too late. So, a nice couple games there. Relatively not super hard, high ladder, but again, just to show how the team can perform and still win against a lot of what is still pretty good. I would say Rinya's son is still pretty good. So let's take a look at the pace one last time and get you guys out of here. All right, so one more time. So here is the Among Us Zapdos Porygon-2 version, where again you rely more on setup and then being able to do damage. Whereas this one, you know, you can be a little bit faster and be more aggressive, you know, with stuff like Rillaboom and Thundurus, and then hide behind Grimmsnarl screens so that in the end game, Solgaleo and Kyogre can do what they need to do. And now, actually, now that I'm looking at this, I also, because there's actually no, I'll keep my Incineroar spread like this. I think this is still okay because I do have Trick Room on the Solgaleo. But again, let me know which version you like. Do you like the Zapdos, Incin, Amoonguss P2 version, or do you like Thundurus, Rillaboom, and Grimmsnarl on this? So again, this is all stuff like this is all done in one-on-one coaching, right? And if you're interested in that, that is a tier 3 sub to the channel where you and we sit down in a Discord call, we build a squad together. I show you how to do the EVs just like this, but a little bit more in depth and a little bit more, you know, slower, just because we have more time and we're not trying to push out content for a video. So definitely look into a tier 3 sub. But if you already have a team and you just want to like fix it up a little bit, then that is a tier 2 sub to the channel where you just send me that Pokepaste either on Discord or you send it via Twitter, and then I'll take a look at it and then I'll fix it up based on what I think is optimal and ideal from what I see in the current meta currently. So definitely look into the tier subs. But again, we're closing in on 2K. As of this video, we got about 1994, so about 6 more left. So definitely hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. Help us reach that 2,000 goal, and then I get to put a smile on my face. All right, so we'll be back with the next video. Until next time, guys, have a good night.